My name's Will, yeah. So I'm not sure if you've spoken. Josh does all his emails via iPad by himself.
I know. I've read up all about it. I know about it, Josh. Great.
That's all right.
I've just watched a few of the interviews this morning. Fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That saves us some explaining to do then. That's all
Yeah,
right.
yeah. No, I'm all up to date.
Perfect.
And you spoke to a lot of my mates, which is great.
You believe you have a mutual friend? Who's that? Oh, I believe you've got a mutual friend in Colin Edmonds.
Oh, Colin, absolutely. I've known him for years. He used to live around the corner from me, actually, in Eastcote, many years ago. Yeah. Are you on the Isle of Wight, are you?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're in.
Yeah, so you probably know John Hammond.
Yeah. John's helped Josh write his books and things, and
yeah, John's a big mate of mine.
Oh wow, we've done loads of small world, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Right.
Is the lighting all right? Or the lights all okay?
Yeah, well, it's just going to be audio. So
brilliant. Go on, mate.
Josh has asked if you can put your camera on because we can't actually see you. It's not.
Ah, is it not on? Hang on. How do I do that?
In the bottom, probably a button that says "Start Video" in the bottom left, I think.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Is that right?
Yeah, there we are. Yeah, I can see you now.
I'm a technical nightmare, Will.
That's all right, mate. That's why I have Josh here to help me.
Yeah.
Right, shall we get straight into it? Yeah. Perfect. We'll jump straight in. Firstly, you've had a varied career working with some of the most prolific entertainment figures of the 20th century. It's a difficult question to ask, but who was your favorite?
Definitely Jimmy Tarbuck.
Why is that?
Definitely. Because when I started out, when I was a kid, a little kid watching Sunday Night at the Palladium, he was what I wanted to do. He was doing what I wanted to do. What he achieved at such a young age was exactly what I wanted to do, and I idolised him a bit. And also along the same lines, and it's quite sad that I'm saying this, Des O'Connor as well. You know, we've just lost him a few days ago. I associated them both with the London Palladium, which my mum and my nan and my uncle used to take me to watch the shows. And I watched a lot with Jimmy Tarbuck, Cliff Richard, Arthur Askey, Des O'Connor, Val Doonigan, just loads of them. And I loved going to the Palladium. And so I associated those sort of personalities, Max Bygraves, all those giants of when I was a kid, with show business and what I wanted to do. It was fantastic. Mm. Josh just added, it's a bit funny now, but you don't realise how big of a star he actually was nowadays. Jimmy Tarbuck? Yeah, absolutely. And to achieve so much at the age, I think he was about 23, to be able to go live every Sunday. I haven't really, over the years, had much chance to watch the tapings of those shows, but recently there was this TV channel that brought them out, and I sat and watched them, and it was just unbelievable. I mean, you know, interviewing big stars of the day live, topical comedy, holding the shows together, and he's still got it as well, Jimmy. I was with him a few months ago on New Year's Eve, and I arrived. This is a true story. I got booked to do a New Year's Eve party in someone's house, and I arrived and I walk in, and the first person I see is Jimmy Tarbuck. I thought, oh my God, right? And then I looked over and there's Des O'Connor. I thought, same words again, right? And then I look over, there's Chris Tarrant and there's Tony Hatch. And I said to the guy, is this a setup? He said, what do you mean? I said,
this is the scariest thing ever, to be appearing in front of my peers in your lounge, you know. And Jimmy came over, and without a word of a lie, he said, I'm so chuffed you're here. He said, do you want me to introduce you? He said, because this is not an easy gig, working in someone's lounge. And I said, yeah. I said, that would be unbelievable. Thank you very much. And he said, and don't worry, I won't be sat in front. I'm going to go and sit in the other room. I said, you sit where you want. I said, you know, but he was so thoughtful that he was thinking, I know if that was the other way round, that he would be scared, because he's, you know, he knows what I think of him. And Des, of course, as well. Des was sitting there. And so it was just an unbelievable evening. That's just the New Year's Eve just gone.
That's mad. So, yeah. That is a good story to tell as well.
It's true story. I think it's the first time I've ever told it as well.
Wow. There we go. Yeah. Exclusive.
Gosh, exclusive.
Now, an interesting thing about your early career was your first agent was June Collins, and she was the mother of Phil. Now,
she was.
How did she shape your early career?
She taught me to be ambitious, to go for it. And the other lady there was Barbara Speake, whose school it was. June was the agent for the school. It was the Barbara Speake Stage School. And she just used to say, go for it, you know. She gave me some advice very early on, which in a way, I wish I'd taken more serious, because I said, I want to do some warm-ups, TV warm-ups to get myself in. And she said, don't do warm-ups. You will become pigeonholed. They'll just think of you as a warm-up man. And I mean, fortunately, I proved that she was sort of right, but there again, she was sort of wrong, because like Brian, who I know you've interviewed as well, Brian Conway, doing warm-ups, we both got TV from doing warm-ups, but we were lucky. A lot of other comics that have done warm-ups, you just get seen as the warm-up man. For instance, many years on, when I was doing a lot of warm-ups, after I'd done quite a bit of television, I was leaving Pebble Mill. I was leaving the studios to go to do a show in Birmingham. And we did the show in the afternoon. I was rushing out. I had my suit bag on my back, and this 12-year-old producer said to me, he said, Jeff, where are you going? So a young producer, you know. So I said, oh, I've got a gig. And he said, oh, are you in a band? He didn't realise I was a comedian. He didn't realise a gig to me was a comedy gig. He thought I was in a band. And that's exactly what June was saying. You get pigeonholed as the warm-up man, you know.
That was a bit like, pardon? That was a bit like Felix Bonus.
Yeah. Absolutely. Felix was a lovely old friend of mine. And he always used to come up to me at the BBC, because we would all be there on a Sunday afternoon. Bobby Bragg, who I'm sure you know, Josh, or you knew, he unfortunately passed on. Bobby Bragg would be there, a guy called Bill Martin, Felix Bowness, myself, and in later days, Ray Turner and Andy Collins, all these people. We would all be at the BBC warming up situation comedies, because in those days, there'd be about 6, maybe 5 or 6 situation comedies being recorded on a Sunday night, because most of the actors were in the West End. And we'd all meet up and have coffee, and Felix was great. He was a lovely guy. And it's a well-known story at the BBC. Felix used to go around the tables at lunch, giving out his card, telling jokes to the producers and saying, don't forget me, you know. So, yeah, proper character. And he had a link with the Isle of Wight, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you met him about 20 years ago.
Yeah. He was a lovely man, Felix. Yeah.
Like you just said, you attended the Barbara Speake Stage School as a teenager.
Yeah.
Nowadays, drama and performing arts degrees are a staple of most education centres. but how did it feel doing something which many considered revolutionary for its time?
Well, I was just so lucky. I mean, the story of how I got into the school is one I'm going to tell you. I've told it a few times, but I was at a normal state school, I suppose you would call it. I think we called it a secondary comprehensive school called Faraday, and it was opposite the Barbara Speake School in East Acton. And at the time, I was doing. I used to go and do talent contests when we were on holiday at Butlins, and I used to really want to be in show business. It was a big thing. I was about 13, I think. Anyway, I was at this school, and in the evenings, I used to work in a greengrocer's shop called Frank's in East Acton. And he had a very attractive daughter who was 15 called Vicky. And Vicky used to walk in every evening when I'd be unloading loading up the van and cleaning up the back of the greengrocers. And Vicky would walk in and she would be in the Barbara Speake uniform. And I said to her, I would love to go to stage school. I said, it's everything I want to do. I want to be a comedian. I want to be an actor. And she said, why don't you go and have a word with Mrs. Collins? I didn't know who Mrs. Collins was. She said, why don't you go and have a word with Mrs. Collins and see if you can go on the agency? Because you'd be good for the agency and you could go up for commercial. I said, this is brilliant. I didn't even mention this to my mum and dad. So the next day, we came out of Faraday, the school, and all of us were going for lunch. We used to go to this chip shop. And we're walking past the school where a few weeks before we were taking the mickey out of all the boys in the school because they were like, thinking they're in show business and calling them names that you would never say now. And we're walking past and I immediately went, right, I'm going to go for it. And I just darted in to the school. My mate said, where are you going? Where are you going? Oh, he's gone. So I go straight in the door and this lady comes out who I can only say looked like Princess Anne on drugs. And she had big glasses, hair tied. And she went, who are you? What do you want? And I said, my name's Jeff Stevens, my real name. I said, my name's Jeff Stevens, and I want to be a comedian. I said, Vicky Hewitt has told me, or I think Vicky Stratford, Vicky Hewitt has told me that I can come in and maybe you'll put me on your agency. She said, come with me. So we go into this office and this lovely lady, this lovely glamorous lady was sitting there, this blonde lady. And she said, who's this, Barbara? And she said, this is Jeff Stevens and he wants to be a comedian. So she said, she said, you go to the school opposite. So I said, yeah. So she said, well, have you ever done comedy before? I said, yes. I said, done talent shows. She went, show us what you can do. So I did 2 minutes of jokes and they both laughed. June Collins said to me, when can you join the school? So I said, well, I've got to tell my mum. I said, what do you mean? I said, they won't be able to afford the fees. She said, we'll take you. We'll take you we'll give you a grant. We would love you to join the school. I said, well, when can I join? She said, tomorrow. So I went, right. So I go back to my mum and my dad, I tell them, and they said, well, you go for it. You always wanted to do it. And if you haven't got to pay school fees, fair enough. I phoned them up to tell them this at lunchtime. I go back into Faraday and I have to go in to see the headmaster to tell him that I'm leaving his school. And I was not a troublemaker, but I was always in trouble because I was always making the class laugh. And I go in to see this teacher, Mr. Mead, who was the headmaster. And he was really strict. And he looked up, he said, Stevens, what have you done now? I said, sir, I've come to tell you I'm leaving. I'm going to another school. He said, what school? I said, Barbara Speake School tomorrow. And he went, get out of here. And as I walked out, he went, oh my God. He said, another boy with ambition. And I always went into my head, another boy with ambition, because he was so used to just sending kids out and, they go to do apprenticeships and what have you. And I really wanted to go for it. And I'm so pleased I did. And the next day I was at Barbara Speake. And a week later, I was in the Two Ronnies doing a sketch with Piggy Malone.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry about my stories are long. I'm sorry about this, guys.
Really interesting. Really good. Now, you made your TV debut in 1979 on LWT's Search for a Star. How did this give you a grounding in live performance, which you could build upon throughout your career?
Well, it was a great thing to do. I was lined up to do another BBC show. I was doing a summer season in Colwyn Bay with Ivor Emanuel, and I think I was only about what year was it? 79. I was 18.
1979. Yeah.
I was 18, and I was doing. There was an ITV strike. There was a long strike that summer, and I was lined up to do another show, and then that fell out. And then my agent, a lovely lady called Sheila Tozer, said there's a gentleman at London Weekend called David Bell, and we all knew who David Bell was. He was the big guy for light entertainment. If you look back, and she said he's seen you. And he's got there's a gentleman who works for him who's the talent coordinator for London Weekend called Bill Hettersley, and he's seen you work, and they would like to book you to do Search for a Star. It's a talent competition, but they're throwing money at it. They're doing big band dancers, Brian Rogers dancers. It was just a real big budget show, and so I couldn't believe it. So I did it. I worked with two writers called Gary Chambers and Dennis Burson, and I went on that show. And I did okay. I didn't storm it. I came second from last with another comic called Walter G. And I wasn't happy that I'd lost, but there you go. That was one of those things. But as I was walking out the studio into the green room, David Bell said, "How do you feel about doing some warm-ups?" And I said, "I've never done one in my life." He said, "Come tomorrow and watch Bill Martin." He said, "Because we're doing another show." He said, "And next week I want you to do the show because Bill can't do it." And that was how I got into television. So it did work, but I was 18. I was so young, too young to go on television and do a live TV. Well, it wasn't live, a TV spot like that. But I'm glad I did it. I'd love to find a tape, but all the tapes seem to have been wiped.
Yeah. Well, throughout the early 80s, you appeared on the ITV panel show Punchlines. Now, what set this show apart from similar shows of the time, like Call My Bluff and Joker's Wild?
Well, Punchlines was a typical LWT show. It was Lenny Bennett. It was all very quick and funny at the time. I got that. I mean, the story how I got that. By this time I'd changed agents, and I was with a guy called Byron Godfrey, and he went into his office in between Christmas and New Year. And I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't doing panto that year. I think I was about 20. And I wasn't doing panto. And I wasn't happy about it. I had nothing to do over Christmas. And so he phones me and he said, "I think I might have got you 6 Saturday night shows." So I said, "You're joking?" He said, "Well, there was a message on my answer phone from Nikki Finch at London Weekend. And she's looking for someone who, she said, 'Have you got anybody? We need somebody to come in.'" I think it was because Michael Barrymore had pulled out at the time. He wasn't a big star at the time, and he was in the West End with Little and Large in a Christmas show. So he suggested me. Nicky said, "Yes, that'd be great." So suddenly I'd gone from being out of work over Christmas to being on every Saturday, sat in the box as a guest with Lenny Bennett, and it was great fun. And I mean, it helped get things rolling a bit,
Yeah, well, in your opinion, how has the nature of joke telling changed over your career?
Oh, it's changed big style. When I started out, it was still fashionable to do jokes like a man walked into a bar, or you would actually tell a joke that you probably might have heard in the pub. And also the subject matter was a lot. People, there was two schools of thought. People weren't so easily offended, and comedians didn't worry about offending people. The reason they didn't worry about offending people really was because they didn't really think about it. And I remember I was no saint. I used to do jokes about bus drivers, I don't know, and all this stuff, because they were, maybe from the West Indies or whatever. I would do jokes about my girlfriend and my girlfriend's mother, which were the equivalent of mother-in-law jokes. I used to do jokes, the Irish jokes and all that. But I tell you, it wasn't long before I started thinking, hang on, this is old-fashioned, and this is not my way of thinking. So I started working really topical, trying to work as clean as possible, even in the clubs. And I stopped doing, like man walked into a bar, I walked into a bar. I was in a bar yesterday, and this, even if it was an old joke, I would make out, but it had happened to me and it was personal to me rather than, Paddy walked into a bar or whatever, which I'm saying this in the old context of I would never do the Irish thing or anything like that now. That's not my, and it hasn't been for many, many years. Yeah.
Josh just said it's like in the style of Bob Monkhouse.
Absolutely. Well, there was Bob Monkhouse, who I loved Bob. He was a nice man, and we both shared the same passion for the same sort of stand-up, especially the American stand-ups. We both loved watching American shows and listening to American shows. But also there was a guy at the time, Ted Rogers, who was a great topical one-liner man, and he used to work with a guy from the Isle of Wight called Wally Molston, who was a scriptwriter. I'm sure Wally was from the Isle of Wight, or there's a connection somewhere along the line with the Isle of Wight. So yeah, I used to love watching. I used to get tapes of Johnny Carson in the States, and Johnny Carson's monologues when he used to come out, and he would do topical material. It's just brilliant. I loved all that.
Can you tell us a little bit about your time on the ITV game show Jumble?
Jumble, yeah, another one that came out of the blue. I was working in Great Yarmouth doing a summer season with Freddie Starr, but I'm all right now. And and this producer came to watch the show, a guy called Colin Eldred, and he watched and he came back. He said, "I haven't got anything for you, but I'm going to remember you." So I said, "Right, okay." And I suppose I was about, 29, 30. And I think it was a year or so later, I got a phone call out of the blue. And by this time I was representing myself. I didn't have an agent. That's probably Colin Eldred ringing with the third series. So Colin Eldred, he said to me, he said, would you like to have a look at a game show that we're doing on ITV, Jumble? It's called Jumble. It's from the States. He said, and I'd like you to have a look at it and do the pilot for me. So I said, does that mean I would do the series? He said, not necessarily, but let's see how we go. So we did the pilot, and it was all about anagrams and cartoons. And I worked with a lovely guy called Howard Imber, who was the writer on it. And he also used to help me because it was quite a complicated show, even though it didn't look it to do. And it was interviewing celebrities. The first show, we had Michael Groff from That's Life, and we had a comedian called Ellie Lane. And we did the show and in Norwich, and we went to the green room afterwards. And I said to Colin Eldred, I said, well, what do you think? He said, it's going nowhere. He said, the format doesn't work for us. And I said, oh, well, that's a shame. I'm really sorry to hear that. He said, don't worry. He said, it'll be a video for your cabinet. So anyway, we did 56 shows after that. Wow. So, and the irony is that before that, in 1 year, I did 10 pilots. And every pilot show that we did, I would get to the green room, and the producer or the director would say, this is going to run. We're really going to have a great one out of this. This is going to be a big hit. And each one was a failure that didn't even go to a series. So whenever anybody told me the show was crap or it didn't work, I thought, oh, maybe this has got some legs in it.
Well, in 1984, you took over from Chaz and Dave on the LWT variety show, Knees Up. How important was it to have your own TV format?
Well, it was great. People have said I took over. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think Chaz and Dave's memory would be served right if I'd said I took over. Chaz and Dave did the first series, and then I'm not sure what happened, but there was whether contractual agreement or whatever. They decided to.
I couldn't quite hear you.
Sorry.
Could you please repeat what you said?
I don't know why. This has all gone on to Siri. Let me just. Can I answer that again?
Yeah, crack on. Yeah.
The Chaz and Dave situation. Chaz and Dave. I was great mates with Chaz and Dave, and I worked with them loads of times. And I was on their first on the first series of Knees Up, which was called Chaz and Dave's Knees Up. And obviously David Bell was involved, and it went very well. And then about a year later, they decided to bring Knees Up back, but I think they wanted to change the format to make it more of a variety show. And so I got asked. I think there was a few of us that got asked to do it, and I made it down to the sort of final list, and I got the show, which was great. But once again, 23 years old, I think I was, too young to host a Sunday night variety show. You know, I should have really kept going, doing guest spots and what have you, and then hoped to have got one when I was about 27 with a bit more experience. But, you know, it was great. Unfortunately, I only ran one series, but we had a lot of laughs, and it was a great experience, and it did do me a lot of good for a few years, because, you know, when you did telly in those days, you could ride on the back of it. You know, you do a great panto and a nice summer season and all that stuff.
Well, as a live comedian, you've become a regular at comedy clubs such as Jongleurs. Now, what's still the thrill of live performance for you?
I love live comedy. I love doing stand-up, and I love the challenge that Jongleurs gave me and the different comedy clubs. The challenge that they gave me was you could not go into a comedy club and get away with doing old jokes. So I had to write, and I wrote I wrote a 20-minute set originally, and I changed my name to Harvey Oliver just for the comedy clubs, because I knew that I was going to be a bit more, the language was going to be a little bit more adult than it would be in the other shows I was doing. So I could keep the two separate. Jeff Stevenson doing the corporates and the cruises and the warm-ups, and Harvey Oliver was this ranting middle-aged bloke. I used to just go out and rant and moan and shout, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. I had 12 great years doing the comedy circuit. I worked with so many young comics who are now great big stars, you know, on TV.
So why did you opt for the pseudonym Harvey Oliver? Elaborate more on that for us.
I went along one night. I was doing, well, believe it or not, I did a comedy course because I wanted to do the comedy clubs. I always wanted to do stand-up, or what they called alternative comedy. I always wanted to do it. And I used to go along and I would sit in these comedy clubs and watch the comics. Because the mainstream comics, we had a reputation for nicking material, but I wanted to prove that I could write my own stuff. And so I went and did this course at the Cosmic Comedy Club in Chiswick, or it's Hammersmith. And there was a great guy, Michael Knighton, who was, he sort of taught comedy and drama and all that sort of stuff. I think he was a film director as well, a film writer. And he took me on to do this 6-week comedy course. And I'd sat in this dark, sort of pretty grim comedy club, if I'm honest, because they always do look grim comedy clubs when they're shut. And we sat there. There was me and a few other aspiring comics. I wasn't aspiring, I was an old hand. And we all had to get up and do 2 or 3 minutes each week. We had to write 2 or 3 new minutes each week with the view to doing a showcase at the end of the course. So I was doing it, and I started writing this stuff, and I was loving it because even though I was writing with punchlines, I was writing more like Josh was saying, like you were saying, Josh, I was writing more about my own life. And at the time, my wife was pregnant, our son, who's now 20 and he's a student. And so I was writing more about life and what was going on. And I loved it. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, one night, the manager of the club was in, a guy called Dave. I think he was actually on the course. No, Dave was on the course. And he was the bars manager. And he said, we do an open mic night here on I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday. Why don't you come along and do Harvey Oliver? Just do 3 minutes. I said, I'd love it. So he didn't say do Harvey Oliver. I've got that wrong. He said, come along and do the open mic night. So I go along and I walk in and I said, great. And he puts my name up, Jeff Stevenson, on a blackboard. I said, what's that all about? He said, well, they put all the names of the comics and then they vote who's the winner. They win 20 quid. I said, I'm not having my name up there. I said, even though it's not going great for me at the moment, I said, I'm not having Jeff Stevenson up there. And there might be somebody that knows me. I don't want to, I said, put a dodgy name up there. He said, well, what name? I said, put Harvey Oliver. He said, it's a great name. So he put Harvey Oliver up there. I went on, did 4 minutes. Really, really went well. All new stuff, all stuff I've written. And afterwards, I go to the bar. I'm having a glass of wine at the bar. And I hear my name. I hear the name Harvey Oliver come up. And the bloke said, that's you, mate. I went, oh, yeah, what do they want? And he said, you've won. And I'd won 20 quid. It was the best 20 quid I've ever won in my life because I was doing new stuff. So it started me off doing the Harvey Olivers, and within a couple of, 3 or 4 weeks, I was doing, they used to do half spots, which would be a 10-minute spot in a comedy club. And I went along and did a half spot at Jongleurs in Camden. And within a few weeks, I was headlining. So it was great. I loved it. And I was working with these comics I used to go and watch, and they any of them that thought I was going to go in there and nick their material, because a few of them did, because I was mainstream. And I changed my description of my act. I called myself a midstreamer. So it was great. Great fun. Loved it. I miss it, actually. I miss doing the comedy clubs. But it's great now when I see, the people like Jimmy Carr and Lee Mack and all these, Lee Evans. I see them all absolutely storming it. And I think, well, that was great. It was great to work with them when I saw them just starting out. Michael McIntyre, I worked with him when he just started out.
Mad. Well, looking back at your career, what is your proudest achievement?
Proudest achievement, I think, would have been when I did Live at Her Majesty's with Jimmy Tarbuck the first time. And I was about, I think I would have been about 26. No, I wasn't, 24, 23, 24. And I went on and absolutely had a ball. Most of it was new topical material written that week. And I just loved it. The fact it was live. It was my comedy hero introducing me. And he'd actually got me on the show because I was doing Knees Up at the time. And he said to David, we should have Jeff on. And it was just wonderful. And then I did it a few years later. It was called Live from the Piccadilly then, when I was a lot more experienced. And I just thought, hang on, this is great. I'm doing what I always wanted to do. When I sat in my nan's front room and watched Sunday night at the London Palladium, that was what I wanted to do. And when I did those 2 shows, I was out there doing what I'd set out to do when I was a kid. And it was just fantastic, But I mean, I've been very lucky. I've kept going over the years.
Well, what is next for Jeff Stevenson?
Well,
Harvey Oliver.
No, Harvey Oliver's retired. He's running a bar on the Costa del Sol now. Oh, he was. He's packed away. He's gone. He comes out every now and then. I tell you what's new now is I'm now an actor. I am. I started out as an actor with the Barbara Speaks with the stage school, and I have to say that I was devastated when this pandemic came in, not only because of all the terrible scenes and terrible stuff that's been going on around the world, but suddenly I've gone from being this really busy comedian on the cruise ships going around the world, and suddenly it stopped, and I had nothing in the book whatsoever, like most of my colleagues. And I got this phone call out of the blue from a guy called Joe Wemble, who I know who I've known over the years. He said, we're doing this film. He said, we want to film it when lockdown finishes. He said, it's called Touching the Blue. It's about an old snooker player. He said, I'd like you to do it. I said, who else is in it? He said, well, it's just you, mostly just you. I said, you've got to be kidding. He said, no. I said, how long's the film? He went, 40 minutes, 46 minutes. He said, depends what we do with it. I went, well, what do you mean it's just me? He said, he's a snooker player, an old snooker player. He said, he's had a breakdown. It's all gone wrong. He was a big player when he was a young man, and he's become a drinker. He's had breakdowns. His marriages have gone wrong, and he's now making his comeback at the Crucible, and he's playing a young kid, and it's a big thing. And the famous snooker players are there, and they are commenting on this, what Derek Hodges has done over the years, and they can't believe it, he's back. And most of the film, 99% of the film, is in the dressing room at the Crucible, and he's ranting and raving and going on about how his life's gone wrong and all that. But now he's back, and it's his big chance. And the whole film is about that night, and is he going to get there? Is he going to get to the final? And we filmed it over with all the COVID details, COVID rules, COVID friendly, what we call it, in a little unit in Hainault in Essex. And we had this wonderful cameraman called Dave Thorpe, and great producer John Danbury, and Jim Holmes and Joe. And we did this film in this unit. And we thought we were just doing a little short film. We did it. Everybody was happy at the end of the week. And we said, well, that'd be a nice thing to have in the file once again. And they went away and they put the film together, and they bought it. They showed me it, sent it to me. And I'm so proud of it. Anyway, they've entered it into all these film festivals. I know nothing about the film festival world, nothing. So apparently we started getting all these laurels, these official invitation to the so-and-so film festival, this film festival, that film. So apparently that is like a nomination when you're being entered into the competition. So we out of, I think, 7 film festivals, we had 6 official invites. We had an honourable mention in one in New York. And then out of the blue, and I'm so proud about this, I won Best Actor in a feature in a film festival in Los Angeles called the World Premiere Film Festival. And I just couldn't believe it. So there's a few doors opening at the moment. There's a bit of a buzz going on. I can't tell you, I'm more excited about the business at the moment than I've been for a long, long time. But I've got nothing in the diary.
No. But like you said, there are some doors opening up.
There's a lot of doors opening. There's a lot of empty rooms at the moment, but there's stuff happening. And I mean, I'm just really enjoying it, and I've got a buzz. And I feel almost guilty because most of my mates are going, it's terrible, it's terrible. I'm going, well, it is terrible. But I have had that phone call out of the blue from Joe Wemborne, and I've now got this little bit of a buzz going. And the film, I'll send it to you, Josh. I'll send you the press copy. It's just, I'm really chuffed about it, and it's got me going again with the acting. You know, I mean, I don't, you haven't mentioned it, but when I was a kid, I was in a film called Bugsy Malone, the film with Jodie Foster. I played the part of Louis. And so, it's taken me back to those days when I was doing the filming the other week in July, when we were doing the filming. I recognised the smells and the atmosphere. And even though we were in this little unit, it still had that buzz about it, like you get in a film studio. I just think, I'm really, well, you could tell, I'm more enthusiastic than I would have been. If you'd have interviewed me a year ago, I would have said, yeah, it's all good. I'm on the cruises, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And if you'd have said to me, what would you like to do? I would have said, well, my dream would be to do a bit of straight acting. Well, now I'm achieving that bloody dream, which is great.
Fantastic. That is really good. Well, that's all the questions Josh has got written out, but have you got...
I'll tell you, that was great. They were great questions, Josh.
Josh has just asked, so do you think you're now going to go full steam ahead into the acting direction?
I'm not sure about that one. I mean, a few people are saying that, but I've got to earn a living. And I love doing the cruise ships. I don't know if you've ever been on a cruise, but the theatres on these big cruise ships now are fantastic. Sadly, one or two of the ships now have got this slight thing hanging over them at the moment because of the COVID that happened when the outbreak first started, which is so sad. But because I was on a ship called the Arcadia, and I was on it for 5 weeks when the pandemic started, and we couldn't get in anywhere. And I have to say, what they did on that ship, even then, back in April, to make it safe, there was no cases on our ship, thank God. And I know now, I've got a lot of friends in the industry, obviously, having done it for so many years, and I know what they're doing to make it a safe environment. Like everywhere, it's all the hotels are doing the same. I would like to mix the two. I never want to stop doing stand-up. Never ever do I want to stop doing stand-up. I'll do that to my dying day. I love stand-up, and I really miss it at the moment. But if I could get the chance to do a bit of acting, a bit more acting, I should say, I would go for it.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end right there. Yeah, that was a lovely interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Will.
Yeah, no, it was lovely to meet you. And yeah, Josh will send you an email when it goes live and
fantastic
on the website. So
all right, thank you very much.
If you send over a press copy of that film, we'd love to see it as well. It sounds brilliant.
I'll send it today. I'll do it. In fact, I'll do it to follow. Yeah, okay. I said the reason I said press copy was because I've got so many people and mates saying, "Oh, send us a copy," and the reason I said that was just to cover myself.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's just a Vimeo. I'll send you the Vimeo link.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Perfect.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much for your
time.
Have
a great day. All right, anytime. Cheers. Cheers, man. Bye.